Way. I'd rather spend money on.
Hey, Channel 17, if you're ready, please start recording. Thank you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our April 2025 TMAC meeting. We are going to jump right in because we have a full agenda as usual. We'll start with introductions. I am Joy McMurray, TMAC Chair.
David Keller, TMAC.
That's Province, TMAC.
On Golden Pro City Development Services.
And Rochelle, Provo City Development Services.
David Hurtado, Chandler City Council.
Local Development Services.
Frank Kiesler, Provo City Engineering.
Kehan Shore, Provo City Engineering.
David Mickelson, Provo City Engineering. Noah Gordon, TMAC.
Judy Johnson, Provo City Engineering.
Gordon Haight, Public Works. Jeff Gandy, Public Works.
Lisa Jensen, Planning Commission and TMAC.
Thank you.
And then how, could we have our guest representatives introduced?
Aaron Kaplan, Mike Walk Provo.
And
And,
who?
Naomi.
Naomi.
And Carol.
I'm Carol Law.
Did you say Carol Long? Yeah. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Nobody on.
Nobody online.
Okay, wonderful. First item is approving our minutes from March. Anyone like to make a motion about that?
Make a motion. Approve minutes.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, great. We're going to switch items 3 and 4 today. So David Mickelson is going to go first, talking to us about the Cobra River Bridge and Trail 820 North.
Okay, thank you for having me here today. I just kind of want to just do it's going to be kind of a brief update on where we're at, kind of the plans for this year. I am going to show some plans for the bridge and then kind of some improvements on the trail. So that's kind of be what we're going to be doing here today. So right now we're here in spring, as you can see. We are a little bit behind of where we wanted to be. We've been kind of held up in our environmental process with the Corps of Engineers. So we're hoping to bid early next month, probably in later May we'll be bidding, and we anticipate construction will start in August now. This will be, part of that is going to be with the June sucker spawn season. We're hoping to be out of that, which ends July 31st. So we won't be starting any of the bridge construction probably until August. Now, depending on when our contractor wants to get going, it may be sooner than that, but you won't see the bridge coming down until August. So we're a little bit behind, but we're still on track to start this year. So like I said, environmental is kind of our big pinch point right now. We are preparing to submit all of our documents to the Corps. We've kind of been going through some review processes with them up front. So that should be into them in about a week or so. We'll see how long that process is. We are going for an informal permit, so it shouldn't be too long to get those. And once we have that, then we can go out to bid. We have finished the design to a 90% level. We're just kind of in our final phases now, finishing final documents, final plans, finishing details. So that will be done shortly in the next couple of weeks. And then, like I said before, we'll bid in May and construction probably August timeframe. One of the important things that we wanted to touch on today is our detour routes. We are anticipating using 500 North for our vehicle traffic. So redirecting them at 500 West or Independence Avenue and hopefully pushing people out on 820 North that direction to those detour routes. We're going to kind of boost this up, and this will be something we'll watch through the process of the project to make sure that we're watching any cut through the local neighborhoods, making sure we're putting additional signage, things like that. But it's anticipated right now that we'll have road closed signs on most of the local streets, kind of just local traffic only to help promote that idea. But it'll be something that we watch through the duration of the project as we move through that. For pedestrian, for the trail, we also will have a detour route coming off of 820 North up to I can't see this far.
900.
900, to kind of have them cross across that pedestrian bridge. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but move across the pedestrian bridge and then back over to the trail or to the other side of 800 North. But this is what the route we'll use for the Provo River Trail, is kind of directing them around that direction. We are right now with another project going in along this route to install ADA ramps to help improve the accessibility of this detour route in preparation for the project. So this is the final plan. This is kind of how it's laid out. We've got our cul-de-sac on the north there. We'll have a dead-end road there on the south on 850 West, and that's how our bridge will lie. We've got about 40, I think it's 46 or 48 feet wide on the bridge deck itself. That's accessible to vehicle traffic in this in this iteration of the build. We've got 16 feet of pedestrian access behind the barrier walls. So that will be, kind of in this area. That will be utilized as sidewalks, as well as we're looking at brick benches and some other possible aesthetic features to be placed in that areas to be utilized, for who knows how long. But that's kind of what we're anticipating there. You can see we've got our trail here, and I'll show you on the next slide what this trail cross-section will look like. I'm really happy about how that is going to turn out. It's going to be a lot better than what it is. But yeah, so this is that's what the project will be, just these two blocks, roadway improvements and that new bridge.
Where did you say the pedestrian areas were?
There's 16 feet right now.
Each of them?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I did that on purpose so we could split them equally in the future when the bridge deck is done again, to have that widening. Those will be reduced to 10 feet on the south and 6 feet on the north. So that would be kind of one of those adjustments. But yeah.
Can you go back to the pedestrian rerouting? Do you have them crossing the street there on the east side of the bridge?
Over here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there something to assist with that, just because the bridge kind of goes up and
We'll have the
there won't be any traffic. Okay.
Yeah. So there'll be.
I was like, wait, no.
Wait a minute, that seems dangerous. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
The bridge will be gone, so the road will be closed. But great question. Yeah. It should be fairly safe to cross there.
Okay. Better be.
Yeah.
You want to go back on that slide, David, and just talk 900?
900 for what?
900 West being turned into a cul-de-sac and no longer a through.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, like I mentioned at first, that's the cul-de-sac. We're going to be restricting any access off of that road anymore. It will be kind of a dead-end road with that turnaround for fire. But we will have pedestrian access down along this little sidewalk leg, allow access down into there. So we will, another safety aspect of this is this will be a substantial grade difference between the cul-de-sac and the road there. So we are going to have a barrier wall, barrier wall from the bridge kind of all the way down to this property here, a 42-inch barrier wall that will help prevent any vehicles from going over that or going into those yards. We've worked with this property owner here to get their access moved over onto this cul-de-sac. So we're going to kind of working through that with them right now. But that will help, eliminate some of that conflict there and keep those houses safe from any potential traffic mistakes that could happen on that.
On the south side,
Uh-huh.
how far does there, or is there one?
There isn't. The barrier just kind of dead ends from the bridge there into normal curb and gutter.
Is that, so it looks like these are one of those houses?
Nope. Yep, no houses will be removed with this phase. Okay, so I wanted to show this. I'm not a graphic artist by any means, so I apologize for the rudimentary view of this, but this was something, these are scaled by ×4 vertically. So this isn't exactly how it looks. It's less exaggerated. But as you can see, this is the trail underneath the bridge here, this existing bridge. Right now, there's not really much view if you put a little bike guy here.
Yeah.
They're not seen under the bridge, and I'm sure if you've ridden that, you know and are very aware of that. This is the new layout. I've done some side distancing. If you're riding a bike, you can see fairly well in advance through the bridge or underneath it, so it's a lot better, as well as our grades. It's going to be fairly nice to be able to ride under that and not have to.
Get off and walk.
Yeah.
Because you have to slow down so much for the visibility that you've lost all momentum to ride back up.
Right. So this is a great aspect. I was going to put together more of these, but I just couldn't get it in. I wanted to do one for the road and some other aspects, but I couldn't get it to look right. But for the road section, we are lowering the bridge. Through the bridge will be about 1 foot to 1.5 foot lower than the existing. But kind of with our approach curves, it kind of pushes the things out a little bit. Side distances, all of that, and everything feels really good. I think it should be a lot better than what it is now and ride a lot better.
Is the whole thing ADA compliant after this thing?
Yeah.
The 8.3.
Yep, everything will be ADA compliant.
And how wide is the path under the bridge?
It varies. So under the bridge itself, through the undercrossing, will be 13 feet. But then the trail outside of that, we range from 10 feet to match into existing to 12. So it's not a specific width the whole way. We kind of vary through that section. So we're going to have the website running back up again. We're getting some updates planned for that shortly, as far as like closure dates, when we get construction updates. Here in a couple months, we'll be posting information there again. Kind of been on a hiatus over design since there really hasn't been much updates. So that's ProvoRiverBridge.com. That will be a great resource for if you need updates. My contact's on there, as well as our consultant who's doing the website. But through the process, feel free to reach out to me or them, and we'll be able to kind of handle any of those questions.
Are you working with the neighborhood, the districts, to post it on their district pages as well?
We will be, yep,
That would be a
absolutely.
good
And I was
way to reach
thinking
people.
the schools also, because August is when school is starting. You don't want it to happen to fall on the first day of school and someone's rushing to get there and then they're late on the first day. That'd be so sad.
Yeah, with our traffic control, we'll have well in advance notice. We'll coordinate with emergency services and schools to make sure that everything is known, especially when those dates start. But once we close the bridge, then it's a hard closure for a couple months, and it shouldn't be too bad. But prior to that, we'll be able to make sure that all that information is out there.
And it's 2 months?
Probably 6 to 9 months, realistically.
Of no
traffic.
traffic at all.
Yeah, I'm working with my consultant right now to try to put together some estimated timelines so that we can kind of build that into our bid documents. We're hoping to have it open in some regard, whatever that looks like, by the end of the year. But there will be potential work in the spring to come back and have to do maybe some short-term closures as well to redo some work. So we'll find out as we get into this a little bit more.
You have a question, Aaron?
May I ask a question?
You may.
If I remember correctly, there was talk previously of closing 850 West.
Yeah.
That's still happening?
Yes, that is correct. So this will be a dead-end road still, just as it is now with our temporary barriers. That will be made permanent. It will act as a drive, basically a drive access for these two homes here.
And may I ask one more question? But this may be getting into the weeds, but we had talked, we'd exchanged messages about maybe finding some way to honor the developed park. That's still part of the plan.
It is. We're working with our aesthetics team right now to kind of build that into some of the form liners for our concrete.
And it's always provided that the family approves that. We're not,
Yeah.
of course, there is a.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, next agenda item. We're very grateful to have representatives from Bike Walk Provo here today. They are not officially working for the city, but we very much appreciate their passion and caring about bike routes and pedestrian routes in Provo, and we're excited to see what you've put together as recommendations for us to consider. Yes, please, come on.
Mayor, I'll give you your charge. Oh, handing it all up. So, thank you, members of TMAC, thank you, Joy, and employees of the city for hosting us again and allowing us to present this information. So this is a follow-up on what we presented a few months ago,
November.
or a number of months ago now. And so if you recall, the context was how do we move Provo forward? How do we prepare Provo to go beyond gold to platinum level bicycle-friendly community, and achieve this vision of making Provo a safe and comfortable place for everyone to move around and improve everyone's quality of life. So thanks to Kehan for pre-circulating this presentation. There's a lot of detail that we hope Public Works will use going forward. And we'll try to not get into the weeds. We want to have time for Q&A. So Carol and I will move through these fairly quickly. That is the hope. But feel free to interject with any comments or questions that you may have as we proceed. So just, there we go. Maybe, yeah. Okay, so if you recall, when we previously presented, we compared Provo with three university cities, Madison, Wisconsin, Boulder, Colorado, and Fort Collins, Colorado. They are all platinum level bicycle-friendly communities, and so the homework that we took away is what can we do to get Provo to that level. So we took it upon ourselves to develop what we called a bikeway master plan, and I sent the results of our study and the methodology to Tom Millar, who works for Public Lands, worked for Alpha Planning and Design, one of the premier bicycle planning consultant companies in the country, and he actually worked on Provo's original 2013 bicycle master plan. And I said, what would you value this plan at? And he said $20,000 to $35,000. So I chose $20,000. I'm going to be humble. But he also said this is a really valuable plan because that's what it would cost if the city had hired an outside consulting firm. But he also said this is a really valuable plan because you're getting inside knowledge from local experts, people who actually use this. Of course, consultants would try to get that, but I think there's a lot of value here. So the kind of three main takeaways to really improve Provo's bicycle active transportation network is that we need more separated trails. That's what people love. People who don't bike love separated trails. They're our most popular parks in the city by far. And we also need more neighborhood bikeways. Fortunately, neighborhood bikeways are very inexpensive to build. Yes, they need a few adjustments, but for example, the 800 East neighborhood bikeway functions really nicely with very few improvements have been made. What has happened was the Sherrills went down, that was paid by UTA, and then the cross-block path connecting 900 East to 8th East, that was something that was done through the neighborhood program and volunteers. And then wayfinding also is important, and thanks to Vern and Chris and others in the city, that's about to happen and start being implemented. So I'm not going to get into the weeds here, but I wanted to show you what our methodology was. We developed these maps of bikeways that I'll show you in a moment, drawing on the expertise initially of the leadership team. We also consulted the 2020 Transportation Master Plan and the 2013 Bicycle Master Plan very carefully, and there's still a lot to learn from both of those plans, but we kind of went beyond that, but just focused on infrastructure mainly, ways that we could improve that. And then we solicited feedback through a variety of ways to the wider bicycling community and beyond. Some of this was targeted emails, a lot of it was social media, but we enlisted all sorts of feedback. Then we implemented that feedback into the maps, and then we solicited further feedback as well. So this was a process that probably took, well, we started soon after our last meeting. We referenced this slide previously, let's see. I think the main takeaway is that, as you'll see, we tried to increase the mileage of bikeways in Provo, but quality really is important. Just yesterday I was talking to Joy, and she said that she and her family rode from their house in the Tree Streets down to Utah Lake State Park, and they went down 800 East, which has bike lanes, right?
800 North.
800 North, yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah. 800 North, and then got on the river trail. And you said the 800 North portion of that was, to use your word, terrifying. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's because the speeds on that road are not appropriate for just having a regular bike lane, as that. And these are because the speeds are much higher than the posted speed limit, in part. So the survey questions that we circulated was, where do people live? What suggested bikeways would you like to see? And we kind of really emphasized bikeways around schools, as you can see from our questions. What comments and questions do you have? And what other additional routes would you suggest? And here's the results. So we got 79 response. Some of those were actually more responses than that, but some of these were multiple responses from the same people. And then I think we had a wide section of Provo represented.
We had even more responses.
Yeah. So here are some of the survey results. So I think these are worth noting. What would be most important in terms of helping K through 12 schools? Canyon Road was mentioned by 37 people. Geneva Road was mentioned by 33. Not surprised, I hear about that one constantly. And then West Center Street, so west of State Street, was mentioned many times as well. And then what intersections, crossings would be most important to address kind of K through 12 active transportation needs. Wasn't surprised to hear 300 North at Freedom Boulevard. It's a very fast-moving road, and there's nothing there. And then further to the east, 300 North across University Avenue, and that would be a very easy one to fix. There's already a light there that's triggered by pedestrians. You could take out the center medium and easily turn that into a bicycle crossing. So that would only be triggered, by bikes and peds. So it wouldn't really change kind of traffic that much. So here's some examples of additional comments. I'm not going to go through those, but you can see people all across the city, depending on where they're trying to bike to, have kind of very specific suggestions, and most of these could be implemented in a very low-cost way. So we showed you this map before. These are all the current bikeways in Provo. We tallied up these. Actually, I should mention that Grace Tuller, who works for the city as a GIS specialist, but volunteers with Bike Walk Provo, helped us with these maps. Fern was very impressed with them. Just to remind, but I need to emphasize that this was done on her own time, not during work. Okay, so, bike lanes. These come in a variety of forms. We have regular bike lanes, and then buffered bike lanes. So, the ones you're probably most familiar with are the ones in front of the rec center between Freedom and State Street. You can see that the difference between regular bike lanes and bike lanes is there's usually 2 or 3 extra feet separating somebody in the bike lane from the auto traffic. And then we have protected lanes, and these come in a variety of forms. The ones that people know the best are the ones on Cougar Boulevard. The concrete, you have a concrete barrier separating you from traffic. But these can be done in very much less expensive ways. For example, with boards, thanks to Vern for implementing these further toward BYU on Cougar Boulevard. You know, in the time that I've been involved in bicycle advocacy, things have moved toward providing kind of more protection in a variety of forms in cities all across the U.S. Harold, do you have anything to add about this?
As we're talking about bicycle advocacy, I also want to zoom out. The bigger picture is giving everyone more options to be able to navigate the city. That bicycling, walking, taking the bus, they're all dignified, autonomous ways that people can have options besides their car. We have many single occupant users of vehicles from BYU, and we also have lots of families. Like we're always growing, right? And we always have young families that all of a sudden they need to get a second car, they need to get a bigger car. But I know personally, so many families are like, oh, because of all these improvements, I feel safer now to have a cargo bike. And instead of buying that second car, they're getting a cargo bike, and that's one less vehicle off the road, making it safer for everyone. And I know some friends who have chosen specific locations in Provo because if I live here, I can take the bus all the way to my job in Orem. And because we live here, we can bike. We have since, you get a choice of the school. They've been choosing schools that they can bike their children to. So this particular family I'm thinking of, they're about to sell their second car because now, even though they added a new member to their family this year, they said, well, with access to the bus and we can cargo bike our kids to school, we no longer need a second vehicle. So it's not just about bicycling. It's the bigger picture is giving people enough options that they feel comfortable and safe enough using and that are reliable.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot more e-bikes throughout Provo, including cargo bikes, and this is confirmed by the statistics from 2019 to 2023. There was a 63% increase, and I think those numbers have climbed even further, and we're seeing this all across Provo. And it's good for these individual families, but also good for all of us, right, including drivers. Less traffic that you have to deal with. So back to the current, so this was the total bikeways up here, but just thinking about bike lanes only, we have about 54 miles of those throughout the entire city. And then this next slide shows what we are proposing to add to that, so another nearly 30 miles. And you can see that the proposed bike lanes, and I'm not going to go into any of this detail, are the ones that are, what do you call that? Dashes, yeah. So, and these are drawn from the feedback we got, also the 2013 and 2020 master plans. And then trails. Nobody dislikes trails. They're everyone's favorite. We have a variety of them in Provo. We're lucky to live, we're lucky to benefit from all the work of MAG and Jim Price and others that take us even beyond Provo. So we have hard surface trails. You're probably, of course, familiar with the Provo River Trail, but also there's a College Connector, and now the new Lakeview Parkway Trail, which will be extended further as that road continues out to the north. And then we have natural surface trails. These are ones that are urban trails within the city that people are using to bike on as well as run and walk on. Yeah.
Recently, in a focus group with the Utah Trail Network, They're discussing what key trails are needed in order to shift more people to use trails in order to commute and recreate. And a large portion of the focus group had emphasized being able to have wide enough trails. Not only is it comfortable because it's separated, but because it's wide enough, it makes it not only feasible because it can handle the flow of pedestrians and cyclists, but also it allows the opportunity to socialize when they're wide enough. When you think about, I know this is kind of like it's a blanket statement, but there's so many stay-at-home moms who their families can't afford a second car. They can't, they're either isolated at home or they have to try to find somewhere to take their kids for a walk where they feel comfortable, but they also would like to be with a friend. So having trails wide enough where 2 strollers side by side so that our most vulnerable, our young mothers and their children, can recreate, can get from the park to the grocery store to wherever they need to go and not feel alone is also something that I hope we can see shift in the culture, because something that is inviting about walking and cycling is that you can do it with other people. You don't drive side by side with people and talk to them through your open windows. That doesn't happen, and it shouldn't, because that's dangerous. But you can do that when you're walking or cycling. So a lot of people were agreeing that we need to make sure that if we have, set aside separated trails, they should be wide enough that that social aspect can also invite more people to come out onto the trails and remove more of the traffic, and also give people options that feel in line with their values. And one of our values is social connection.
Yeah, all right. So here's the current trails. I think we've mentioned a number of these. And then here are the additional 25 miles of trails that we recommend. Some of these may be difficult to pull off, like the one next to the railway going here, but this was in the 2013 master plan. I talked to Brian Torgeson about kind of improving the trail around the airport, which would be really mainly a recreational trail, but would be really cool. If you ride it now, you better have really tires that resist go-heads, otherwise you'll get flat. One that we're really excited about that we've visited with Vern and Gordon is the Spring Creek Trail, and we're hoping that UDOT will help us get that done eventually. So a variety of trails, and we're hopeful that these will come to pass. And then we have multi-use sidewalks. So these are kind of a cross between a trail and a sidewalk. They're really wide, so they can do the things that Carol was talking about. These we've made a lot of progress on these, in part thanks to BYU on 9th East and UDOT along 500 West, and we're going to get more of that on South State Street over the next couple of years, if I understand correctly. So these are really great, but because they're separated from the traffic. That said, they often have a lot of potential conflict zones because of crossings, driveways and other crossings. So here are the current multi-use sidewalks in the city, places that I just mentioned, and then the ones that we suggest. Actually about 3 miles. And this one I think is a done deal. And then there's a few, I'm having a hard time seeing the other ones. Anyway, we'll go on to one that I'm really excited about, because these are the most low-cost ones. And hopefully you're familiar with some of these. So neighborhood bikeways. So these are already low-volume, low-speed streets that are kind of naturally lend themselves to bicycling and scooting. And they prioritize people who are using these forms of transportation. They can be further improved and be even more bicycle friendly through these markings on the street, through protected bicycle crossings, and we'll talk about those in a moment. Mini roundabouts like the one on 2nd North and 2nd East, and traffic diverters, which we don't have any, but I'm going to show you an example of. the neighborhood bikeways that we have in the city right now, you can see are Second East, and I was just riding on that street the other day and started talking to a female BYU student. She says, "This is my favorite street in all of Provo." And we hear that constantly. There's another great one that leads to BYU on 8th East. There's some on campus. There's also, Third West, yeah, Third West. You have better eyes than I do. And then there's some that are not, neighborhood bikeways, but are kind of more, just have sharrows on them. Those are the ones at BYU. And these are ones that we're, as you can see, we're really excited about. We like to add another 20 miles or so of neighborhood bikeways. Third North we've already mentioned would be a great connection and pretty easy to improve. The Freedom Crossing would be the most challenging. There's one that we'll come back to later is 600 West, 700 West, which leads from Exchange Park, and it goes by Timpanogos Elementary, Franklin Elementary. So we really emphasized kind of connections to schools as part of these neighborhood bikeway plans. And so here are some of the things that have made these neighborhood bikeways possible. Second East wouldn't be very good if there wasn't a crossing at 7th North and a crossing, this crossing at 300 South that allow cyclists and peds to get across more easily. And the other thing they do is they reduce traffic volume because no longer is through traffic allowed, and left-hand turns onto these are no longer allowed because of the changes that have been made to the street. One thing that we haven't done in Provo that I'd like to see, and actually this is recommended, one particular spot is recommended in the 2013 Bicycle Master Plan is diverters, like this one there's lots of these in Madison, Wisconsin, where you can see that bicyclists can access the street from this direction, but cars are not supposed to. And Midwesterners, and I think Provoans are very obedient, so I think people will abide by that. So this further reduces traffic volume, and ideally these neighborhood bikeways should be, cars should be going no more than 20 miles per hour. I think I've already discussed. Oh, here are the crossings that we have in Provo. I've mentioned a couple of them already, and we also have a few more that were just opened further west on State Street at 300 North and First North. No, 300 West and First West. Thank you. I think I need to let Carol talk. So here's the current bike crossings. Carol, you want to carry on for a moment?
So
Yeah.
I would like to bring attention back to the proposed bikeway map. So, higher.
Okay.
There.
For
There.
oh, okay. Yep.
I would love to emphasize that the more we can divert pedestrians and cyclists away from the busier thoroughfares, the more comfortable and safer it is. And we have a grid network for vehicles, but having a connected grid network for cyclists will also remove a lot of those complex vehicle cyclist conflicts that you'll see on like main thoroughfares. You'll still have the braver cyclists on the busy roads, but I just wanted to share that for me personally, just adding those bike crossings on 300 South have saved me anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes on my commute to my son's school, and it's helped us to be able to take advantage of the bikeways, like 200 East, for example. We get to be in the residential areas to commute to a school. It's like a 3.4 mile ride for us.
Yeah. So Carol is riding from the Timp neighborhood to South State Street.
Yeah,
So
his
3
school,
miles.
my son's school's on Lakeview Parkway, so It's about 3.5 miles from my house to the school. But because of these crossings, my 6-year-old, who's a little 6 right now, he can bike. Like, he just did it yesterday. He can bike from our house with me all the way to his school and back. And I asked him this morning, what's your favorite part of the ride? And he said he really likes the area around like Spring Creek Park. That's because that's when we're really in just residential. But he said the second, but those crossings make it, if those crossings weren't there, we would be taking a different route. But because those crossings are there, we are using the bikeways. We're not on like Freedom, we're not on Center Street. And we try to avoid State Street as much as possible, but the last section, we have to be on State Street, and it sucks because there's like no sidewalk to ride on. There's like 3 or 4 places that are missing the sidewalk.
And there's buffered bike lanes there, but your buffered bike lanes next to 50-mile-per-hour traffic.
And
With
traffic jam.
a 6-year-old?
I mean, 7, sorry.
7-year-old.
I'm still living in the 6-year-old, he's 7 now.
Dangerous.
But he's been biking, he's biked there when he was still 6. But making it so that children feel safe and comfortable and confident. He's got a little bit of Japanese in him, so I'm like saying, also, I'm just encouraging that part of it. He's got his own bus pass, he's got his own library card, and now he knows how to bike to and from school, of course with me. But we have examples of what it looks like to give children the opportunity to be autonomous, to be independent, to be able to use their bodies to get around. We have an epidemic of loneliness, developmental delays, obesity, because our children are being chauffeured. They're like the chauffeur generation. Like, do you remember being chauffeured everywhere when you were a kid? Like, probably not. So giving opportunities for this very vulnerable, very critical time of life to have these opportunities to navigate their world safely and with others, not just because they need to get to school or get to the park, but also because they want to be with their friends on their bikes or on their scooters, or like with us, we have to commute to school because I can't drive. So I picked Provo and where I live because it gives me options. That's my thing about the crossings.
Yeah.
They're really helpful and useful, and having that bikeway grid helps divert and kind of like, it helps divert that traffic elsewhere from where there would, instead of where there's more conflict.
Yeah, okay. So back to the current bikeway network, we're about at 100 miles. And then taking all the recommendations and putting them on a single map takes us to about 175 total miles of bikeways. And if you compare this map to Boulder, Madison, Fort Collins, we now have an interconnected, robust network system of bikeways to get people to the destinations that they would like to get to. So that's what we would like to aim for. And just a reminder that quantity is important, but quality is really important. And if you look at the previous bike plans, you'll see some specific recommendations in that way. And including these that we note here. Some of these are kind of spot treatments, like the Dutch-style intersection that Public Works and Bike Walk Provost tested out a few years ago. It would make a huge difference for kids walking and biking to Centennial and Rock Canyon Elementary. And then we want to conclude with this final slide. I don't know if any of you clicked on these links when the presentation went out. But this is just a comparison between the 2020 Provo report card that we received from the league. This is when we were silver. We applied for gold. We didn't get it. And we're preparing to apply for gold again. Hopefully we'll get it this year. This is a comparison with the 2021 Fort Collins report card. They were gold, and they applied and received platinum. So this goes beyond infrastructure and speaks to some issues that you've discussed as a committee previously. So first off is let's start up at the top. So bicycle education in schools. needs improvement in Provo. In Fort Collins, it's excellent. And I think we've really tried to emphasize that what motivates us as a organization is making Provo a better place to live for everyone, particularly for families, to give them safe and comfortable options to move around their community for all the reasons that Carol has very eloquently discussed. Also, I know...
Can I ask a quick
Yeah.
question about
Yep.
that? Does that include universities?
Uh,
The college, right? Yes.
It does include universities, yeah. And actually, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this because I visited Fort Collins. I've spoken with people both in the city and at Fort Collins, and Fort Collins and Colorado State work hand in glove to try to encourage people to get to the university through means other than a single occupant automobile commute. And they have achieved over 50% of all trips to campus, including for athletic events, are being made in ways other than a single occupant automobile commute. They have a bus, rapid transit line, but they also, the university is doing things that BYU is not, and I'm trying to get BYU to do. They have an active transportation coordinator who has a small army of students who visits faculty and staff and says, how would you like to get to campus in ways other than driving?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah. So this partnership between Provo and BYU is really important, and I see it improve over the last decade, but I'd like to see it go beyond that.
And it's not just the incentivizing, but safety issues, you know.
Yeah.
The students are not safe as bikers.
Yeah.
So those who are biking, they're not wearing helmets, or they're going on the side of the street and all that.
And it's not, when you said it's not just incentivizing, it's also disincentivizing. I mean, one thing BYU ought to be doing that they're not is charging you and I, faculty and staff, for parking, right? There needs to be carrots and sticks at play. So back to the share of transportation budget. I know we're spending a lot. We've had this, Gordon's discussed this in past meetings, but you know, having it be unknown is not very helpful when you're comparing that to 7%. And then the final one, I know you've discussed this as a committee, is the number of bike program staff to the population. In Provo, it's 1 per 100,000 people. If you look at Fort Collins, it's 1 for every 8,000 people. And I'll just end with distributing this. We have a little Bike Walk Billy sticker that I hope you'll put on a water bottle or a computer or something. But also it's attached to this page that shows 15 members, city employees in Fort Collins who work on bike issues. 5 of these are full-time members who exclusively work on bikes. And you'll note at the bottom so I spoke yesterday to Courtney Gary, their active modes manager yesterday, and she provided me this information and more, which I'll share with Vern, that when they applied for gold status in 2007, so this is quite a long time ago, and I think the standards have increased. They didn't get gold, but they got feedback from the league suggesting that they were on the cusp of receiving gold. And one of the recommendations was to consider hiring a full-time bike coordinator. And they said it's impressive what's been done by a half-time employee, but adding to these efforts would undoubtedly improve bicycle friendliness in the community. And they cited Boulder, which had, at the time, 5 people working on every facet of bicycling in the community. And you can see from this chart that Fort Collins took that feedback seriously, and they have people that are engaged in adult education related to bicycling, safe routes to school. She confirmed yesterday that this was the city really doing this for the district. And they're doing a lot of things that Bike Walk Provo is actually doing right now that we're happy to do, but it's not sustainable. and we're not going to get, perhaps, certainly not going to get to platinum, and it may be even hard to get to gold in the current state of affairs. So, thank you, and look forward to your questions and comments.
I think
Yeah, David?
I'll predict your answer. Probably I'll feel it, but I'm gonna ask you this question. What is the number one objection that prospective?
Well, we've heard this a lot about Cougar. They drive down Cougar periodically, and they don't happen to see anybody biking on those bike lanes. And they think that Cougar was done for bicyclists. It was not. It was primarily redesigned to improve driver safety, and it has. Cougar cost a lot, but it wasn't primarily done for bikes. And I think it comes down to this mentality, these things will cost money, and they're not going to be used. But they're being used. They're being used by families, individuals, students, and I don't want to say students. I'm trying not to say students. I want to refer to our students as Provo residents, and they need to be treated as Provo residents. If we treat them better as Provo residents, we're going to invest in ways that will help them get to from campus in the community in safe ways. Yeah, that's the sort of objections that I hear.
That's what I see all the time on social media. No one's ever on the bus, no one's ever in there.
Yeah.
Find out exactly that that's, whether they're being used or not, and they are, actually kind of a tangential benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, if I could just piggyback on that, when we talk about budget issues in council, talking about adding like infrastructure, then it has a price tag to it, but we often, with the sort of millions of dollars that we spend every year on road maintenance and car usage, it's almost self-understood, or it almost becomes visible.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wonder, highlight those cost differentials a little better so that people don't get their noses bent out of shape about, well, if we were going to ask for this much money for bike infrastructure, that's actually only 0.5% of the car budget in the city of Provo or whatever it might be. That that's because we don't realize what we're already spending when things are already costing.
And when it comes to AT investment, this is a win-win. This is a win for everyone. It's related to air quality as well, right? And I love how, David, how you brought up transit, because we haven't talked about transit, but transit is an essential part of this effort, right? Really good transit, which I think we have a good transit system, but we need to bolster the last mile, first mile connections and encourage people to move around in a multimodal way.
We're gonna need to call it there. So we have 5 minutes for our last item. TMAC members, feel free to ask more questions to Aaron and company.
Yeah, we're happy to.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Over our last several meetings, we've been talking about micromobility. We've had multiple presenters come by. Beth instigated that discussion for us as a priority for her and for our city. So we won't have time to. We kind of want to say, with everything we've heard, how do we bring it all together? What do we do with that information? Where do we go from here?
I just want to bring up a couple of
Beth's
points,
gonna,
and then we can save the discussion.
we'll save it for next time. Yeah.
I actually really appreciate the bike walk presentation today, because I think that ties in a lot into micromobility in the city. I think moving forward, we've heard about the trail system, we've heard about how we move around the city, we've heard about numbers and everything and we know that, like David brought up before, the e-bikes, e-scooters, all of that is a growing population. of how we're getting around the city. And I think that one of our things we need to look at is possibly take the bike plan and turn it into an alternative mobility plan, so that we're actually looking at a wider array of people. I mean, you talk about getting around the city comfortably and safely. I think that's a great thing to look at. So when we're talking about these one-wheels, when we're talking about e-bikes, when we're talking about e-scooters and everything, we need to think a little bit bigger than just one section and everything. The things that I would like you guys to kind of think about for next time is what are possible standards moving forward. Safety standards, speed limits on the trail system, we've talked about that before, but also the sharrows and everything. Instead of doing the bike logo, maybe do an inclusive logo of all types of mobility through this. Also information sharing, public awareness, getting everybody out there aware of this multi steps of mobility, from pedestrian, bicycles, e-bikes, scooters, all the way up to cars, trucks, semi-trucks, the whole range of it, and how we can implement something like that in the city. Those are just a couple of thoughts that I wanted. I know we want to finish on time, but if we want to hold a bigger, longer discussion about how to kind of implement all of this in, or how our thoughts about it, or if we just want to stick to information sharing, I think that's kind of my thoughts about moving forward with micromobility.
If I might mention, I refer to these facilities as bike lanes today, but as Vern knows, I often use the term mobility lanes, because good bike lanes are great for scooters, and we're seeing a huge number of scooters at BYU and beyond BYU, all across the city. And so these things that we presented today will benefit all of those people. But yes, we need to think in broader terms.
Are wheelchairs also, electric wheelchairs also included in this?
So that's, actually, that's a really good point. I don't see any, would they consider motor assist?
The legal definition is a personal assistive device, and they're illegal. As the chair, those don't go fast enough. Right on that.
Yeah,
I see.
Aaron has a quick comment on that, so.
So, you're right, Carol. This was something produced by the police department, but we're seeing more and more residents, whether they're aging or whether they're just have other disabilities, need to be accounted for too. Recently, the city has put together basically an ADA committee that Gordon and I now serve on. And we have had our first recent meeting this week. And all because we want people to be able to use those facilities and not be encumbered by infrastructure. And sometimes conflicts of infrastructure between power poles and power boxes get in the way of sidewalks and access and all types of issues. And we have them all over the city, and every city does. I've never seen a city that doesn't have these conflicts. But it sure would be nice to chip away at some of those conflicts.
Anyone feeling a burning desire to share a final comment? We're good? Okay. As always, there's so much more that could be said, so come back again next month, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, wheelchairs, walkers.
Recording stopped.
No.
It's good.